Well, I'm sure this leather coat certainly feels familiar. I mean, after all, I did wear it for the reviews for the solo Wolverine and Deadpool films. But anyway, X-Men Days of Future Past. Here's where you can watch them while listening to the commentary. But of course, you can also listen to the commentary while watching the film on DVD. Now, I should also point out I am doing a commentary on the theatrical cut, not the Rogue cut, which has more scenes featuring Anna Paquin reprising her role as Rogue. Just wanted to point that out before you watch this commentary. So yeah, this is the theatrical cut. But anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy the commentary to X-Men Days of Future Past. Welcome to Commentary Companions. I'm your host, Tony Garcia, and today I'm doing a commentary on X-Men Days of Future Past, released in 2014. Now, for the most part, okay, I must admit, my track record when it comes to watching the X-Men films in theaters is inconsistent at best. You see, I was 3 years old, going on 4, when my father first took me to see X-Men, and I do not remember seeing most of X-Men in theaters. I missed out on X2, though to be fair, I was in kindergarten, so of course I wouldn't know about the second X-Men film. But I definitely remember seeing X-Men The Last Stand in theaters. And, of course, I watched most of the X-Men films in theaters, but X-Men Days of Future Past is one of the few films I did not watch in theaters, regrettably. I watched it on DVD, and trust me when I say I feel like an idiot for not watching X-Men Days of Future Past in theaters, because it really is a good film. Specifically, I think 2023. Dark, desolate. Kind of looks like what America's going to look like after Trump's second term. And no, I will not stop using that as a running joke. Yep, and you can tell they're mutants with a branded M on the right side of their eye, which is a very nice detail. Yeah, pretty one-sided. Actually, it almost looks like the world after Judgment Day in the Terminator films. Ooh, that got dark. But yes. Okay, I'll talk about what this is based on very soon. Of course, given my limited knowledge, I did not know that this movie was based on a comic book. Like a lot of people. Hey, look, it's the X insignia. X-Men Evolution. Yeah, I think that's Rogue at the beginning of the film. Yep. And you can... it's like, imagine seeing this on the television and hearing that awesome theme song. Like, it had been such a long time since I had heard John Ottman's signature theme song. Sorry, I'm getting pumped. And yes, I admit it, this film is so much better than The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Then again, most fans would agree with that. And to think, was released the same year as Captain America the Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy. Title card! And seeing the X logo. Oh yeah, we're back, baby. Now, anyway, Days of Future Past is based on a two-part storyline of the same name, which was published in 1980, written by Chris Claremont and co-written and illustrated by John Byrne, which occurred in Uncanny X-Men number 141 and Uncanny X-Men number 142. And I'm surprised that it was only a two-part comic book series, but hey, it's... hey, this series remains one of the most definitive X-Men stories of all time, right up there with the Phoenix Saga. Uh-oh. And here we have, for the team, we've got Blink, Warpath, Sunspot, Bishop, and of course, Kitty Pryde and Colossus. And I just realized this I realized this after viewing this. Colossus has absolutely no speaking lines, which actually would really seriously surprises me. Here's Johnny. Now, if I recall, that's Sunspot. And Sunspot made his comic book debut in Marvel graphic novel number 4, The New Mutants, in September of 1982, created by Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod. Also, please do not make a drinking game every time I mention X-Men, Days of Future Past, Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, and Chris Claremont and John Byrne. I don't want you ending up in the hospital. Oh yeah, and Iceman, played once again by Shawn Ashmore. I almost didn't recognize him with the beard. And yeah, he does admittedly look handsome with his beard and such. He looks really cool. No pun intended. Uh-oh, that's a one-sided arm wrestling match. Ooh, and it's adapting to Colossus's powers. Oop. It's like resistance to the cold. Yep. I must admit, these Sentinels imitating Mystique's powers, pretty much using Mystique's DNA to imitate the powers of the X-Men, it actually reminds me not only of Weapon 11 from X-Men Origins Wolverine, but it also reminds me of the Justice League villain Amazo from Justice League. Yeah. Amazo can also imitate the Justice League's superpowers. Damn, what a brutal death for Iceman. Damn! And I guess I'll talk about Bishop, because this is actually his live-action debut. Now, Bishop, whose first name is Lucas Bishop. Now, Bishop made his comic book debut in issue number 282 of Uncanny X-Men, published in November of 1991, created by Wilcie Portacio and John Byrne. Bishop's first appearance on television was in X-Men the Animated Series from 1992 in the two-part episode Days of Future Past, which was the first time the story was ever portrayed. Here, Bishop travels to 1992 to prevent the death of Robert Kelly, not knowing Mystique impersonated Gambit to frame the X-Men. Bishop was from the year 2055 on the show. And yeah, and I'll admit, Bishop looks so cool, not only in general, like he looks cool in the comics, and he also looks cool here. He always has a unique appearance with that branded M on the right side of his eye. I'm thinking, here's Johnny. Also, this would mark the second and last time Ellen Page would play Kitty Pryde before transitioning into Elliot Page. And you're thinking, where'd they go? Oh no, not where, but when. For, you see, this battle never happened. Yep. Honestly, this doesn't seem too off given our society today with ice. Now, Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen were performing in a touring production of Waiting for Godot when director Bryan Singer approached the actors about reprising their respective roles as Professor X and Magneto. According to McKellen, both men were utterly shocked, as they thought that they had passed their roles on to James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, and would never play the characters again. Stewart and McKellen were delighted to return to two of their most popular roles to work with the younger actors, playing the same characters as well. And I suppose I'll talk about the other supporting players of the remaining Resistance, aka the remaining future X-Men. Now, we also have... Now, Warpath made his comic book debut in New Mutants number 16 in June of 1984, created by Chris Claremont and the late Sal Buscema. In the comics, Warpath is 7'2", while his actor, Boo Boo Stewart, is 5'8". I also didn't know that Boo Boo Stewart also played Jafar's son in Jay in the Descendants movies, and also played Max, the dog, in that one live musical of The Grinch. What an embarrassment. But yeah, quite a strange range for this guy. Let's see, I already mentioned Warpath. Oh yeah, and last but not least, Blink made her comic book debut in Uncanny X-Men number 317 in October of 1994, created by Scott Lobdell and Joe Madureira. I don't understand why Kitty and Colossus aren't together in the movies, but whatever. Yep. Now, the reason Kitty's able to do this is she time travels by utilizing her mutant ability to phase through or become intangible to solid matter. By extending this power to disrupt the temporal burial instead of just physical space, she can send a person's consciousness back in time to possess their younger self. Rather than physically sending a body back, she projects a person's psyche into their past self. The target's mind replaces their younger consciousness for the duration of the jump. Now, as I mentioned before in my commentary companions to X-Men First Class, Mystique first confronted the X-Men in Uncanny X-Men number 141, kickstarting Days of Future Past. Mystique kickstarts the events to Days of Future Past by assassinating Senator Robert Kelly instead of Boulevard Trask. Dun dun dun. I remember recognizing Peter Dinklage after seeing him in Elf. Practically making him a martyr. Now, the Sentinels and Boulevard Trask both made their comic book debut in X-Men number 14 on November of 1965, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. I didn't realize that Trask also made his debut in that comic book, but, that's why I do my research. And now you know. And knowing is only half the battle. Now, originally in the comics, it was Kitty Pryde who would time travel herself. And, Kitty herself used pretty much traveled back in time, thanks with help from Rachel Summers, who is the daughter of Scott Summers and Jean Grey. But the producers were like, nah, if you do that, technically Kitty Pryde wasn't born by then. So of course it makes sense why they would have Wolverine do the time travel, due to the fact that he's been alive for 200 years. And from a storytelling standpoint, it does make sense. I'm trying to see if I wrote down that fact. Nope, but looks like I didn't. But yeah, after the success of X-Men First Class, Matthew Vaughn originally intended for there to be a prequel trilogy. The second film was going to be called X-Men First Class 2 and would have been set in the 1970s and would have featured a younger Wolverine with Tom Hardy in mind to play said younger Wolverine, which is kind of funny since Tom Hardy is only 9 years younger than Hugh Jackman. The third, and of course, after I don't know why Matthew Vaughn didn't think to call this sequel X-Men Second Class, which would have made better sense title-wise. I mean, X-Men Second Class sounds kind of cool. Anyway, but yeah, after X-Men Second Class, the third film would have been Days of Future Past, serving as the ultimate finale with the prequel actors crossing over with the Bryan Singer cast. But Fox liked the Days of Future Past pitch so much and thought it was too exciting to wait for as a third film, and immediately made that the next movie, much to the chagrin of Matthew Vaughn, which caused him to leave the director's chair and gave Bryan Singer the chance to take over as director. But yeah, the filmmakers selected the Days of Future Past storyline because it would allow the filmmakers to reconcile any continuity dissonances within the X-Men film franchise. The time travel element also allowed actors and actresses from the first three movies and X-Men First Class to appear in the same movie together, which I think is pretty cool. What could possibly go wrong? Of course, one interesting detail is that, in the future, specifically I think 2023, Wolverine's sideburns are gray. And somehow his claws have gone back to being adamantium, even though they were bony in the Wolverine. Actually, now I need to ask, how come Wolverine's claws are adamantium in Days of Future Past? Oh, okay, so there actually is a reason how this came to be. Magneto used his magnetic powers to rebond adamantium to Logan's natural bone claws in Days of Future Past, but I guess that was mentioned off-screen. Well, the more you know. And like I said, and knowing is only half the battle. Ooh, that's a nice looking lava lamp. I wish I had a lava lamp again, but I swear I would probably take better care of it now than I did when I was a teenager. I was kind of negligent of said lava lamp when I was younger. Yep, welcome to 1973 on a waterbed. Now, the script called for Logan to wake up in 1973 in boxer shorts. Hugh Jackman vetoed this in favor of waking nude, saying, "In Australia, if you're next to a really good-looking girl, you're not getting out with boxer shorts on or briefs or anything." But yeah, including his cameo appearance in X-Men First Class, the Days of Future Past is Hugh Jackman's seventh portrayal of Wolverine, which raised his own record for the most times a comic book character has been played by the same actor in the theatrical movies. Jackman is also the only actor to appear in every X-Men movie in the franchise up to Logan, and that doesn't include his cameo appearance in Deadpool 2 and also the first Deadpool film. Oh boy. Just, Eh. Oh, and he's Beck and his pretty much showing off his pecs and making him bouncing his pecs like he's Dwayne Johnson. Bone claws. Oops. This scene where he wakes up into the 1973 immediately wins me over. It's what helps make the film work. There are the keys. Yeah, somehow these are his peaceful thoughts. But yes, I love the 1970s aesthetic. And of course, the 1970s aesthetic and the dark future costume aesthetic are provided by a certain costume designer. But I have to talk about this fun little cameo appearance. Now, these are actually some of these congressmen are actually played by several comic book people, including the late Len Wein and X-Men, who's the co-creator of Wolverine, plays one of the congressmen at Trask's hearing, and one of the other congressmen is played by Chris Claremont. This is actually a fun cameo appearance for the X-Men fans out there. I see it as a nice little wink. It's very fun. Now, according to Peter Dinklage, Bryan Singer picked him to play Boulevard Trask because of his height, stating, and I quote, "With my dwarfism, I'm a bit of a mutant. I can't move metal or anything, but I thought of it as self-loathing. Deep down, Trask is quite sensitive about that aspect of himself." Of course, I'm always going to remember him for his cameo appearance as freaking as that one angry book agent in Elf who gets angry at Will Ferrell for calling him an elf. It's like, call me an elf one more time. But yeah, X-Men Days of Future Past really does show Peter Dinklage's range as an actor. It shows his ability to do both comedic works and dramatic works, as well as his performance as Tyrion Lannister. I mean, who can forget that? I think his performance as Tyrion Lannister played a big role in his casting as Trask. According to Bryan Singer, he could only get the movie started with confidence once Hugh Jackman, Sir Patrick Stewart, and Sir Ian McKellen agreed to return. That's an order from your commander. Now, the costumes designs were done by returning X-Men and Bryan Singer collaborator Luis Mingenbach, who I mentioned also worked on Starsky and Hutch, Spanglish, Superman Returns, Hancock, The Hangover Trilogy, G.I. Joe Retaliation, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Jumanji The Next Level, Snake Eyes, Shazam Fury of the Gods, and Skeleton Crew. There's Toad. Looking very different, but I can kind of tell that it's him. Yeah, totally not, those motives are totally not ulterior. Not exactly. Oh yeah, totally not sinister. William Stryker. Yep. Now, William Stryker here is played by actor Josh Hellman. He was originally chosen to play Juggernaut in the film, but Juggernaut got removed from the script. To compensate, they cast Hellman as a younger William Stryker here. And, yeah, he actually does play a very good younger version of William Stryker. I think he does a good job pretty much making him look like a younger Brian Cox and younger Danny Houston, like that fine line between both characters. Do you know what happens to a toad when he grabs a gun? Well, he's able to get the gun. Now here, Mystique's makeup is much more different from X-Men First Class. The makeup was provided by Legacy Effects. A blue bodysuit was used this time, shortening the makeup application to 3 to 4 hours. However, the suit and makeup did sometimes create a squeaking sound during takes. Which kind of sounds pretty funny. Yeah, Eric's dead to me. What was I think? Oh, yeah. But yeah, these costumes are very well done. Now, Days of Future Past received an Oscar nomination for Best Visual Effects, becoming the first X-Men movie to receive an Academy Award nomination. Maybe Mystique should have still posed as a man to keep on fooling everyone. He is not happy. Private property, keep out. Yeah, it was as not, yeah, not looking good. Oh boy, and my arm's falling asleep. Left arm specifically. You won't believe how many times I have made my arm fall asleep. You know, I was so confused when I saw Nicholas Hoult, or should I say Hank, in his human form. It's like, what? How'd he do that? Oh, you just made him angry. And you won't like Hank when he's angry. Now, this time around, it actually took 4 hours for Nicholas Hoult to be turned into Beast through makeup. The makeup was more refined and less restrictive than First Class. Sometimes Nicholas Hoult would be in the makeup chair as early as 2 a.m. Also, I was so confused seeing Charles Xavier come in walking. Now, Sir Patrick Stewart enjoyed James McAvoy's lighthearted performance as Charles Xavier in First Class, and had wanted to try a similar performance with Xavier instead of keeping him grave and sober. He got his wish with this movie. In the altered future, his Xavier is just a bit jollier. Yeah, it's weird how Charles doesn't have his can walk, but it comes at the cost of his mind reading powers. It's weird. But that's comic book logic for you. The original Days of Future Past comic mentioned time travel from the year 2013, the same year in which filming began. In this movie, the future action is implied to take place in 2023, which is funny because I lived through 2023. Ain't that something? Now, the first three X-Men films and First Class were shortlisted for the Oscar for Best Visual Effects, but they were never nominated. In the original comic storyline to Days of Future Past, Marvel heroes other than X-Men are wiped out by the Sentinels, such as Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, Daredevil, Iron Man, Hulk, the Fantastic Four, and someone who looks like the Silver Surfer, but is more likely Bobby Drake. In fact, if I recall, which is messed up. But yeah, an alternate adult version of Franklin Richards, who is the son of Reed Richards and Susan Storm, plays a big role in the Days of Future Past storyline. He goes by the alias Scrapper and is a mutant resistance fighter and the lover of Rachel Summers. But tragically, he's killed by Sentinels. Now, Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen had makeup applied to look 20 years older than their actual ages. They had previously had digital makeup applied to look 20 years younger in X-Men The Last Stand. Now, Bryan Singer based the time travel in the movie on string theory. Until an object is observed, it hasn't really happened yet. The time traveler, whose consciousness travels through time, I call the observer. And until the observer returns to where he traveled from, the result hasn't occurred yet. So he can muck about in the past, and it isn't until he snaps back that the new future is set. As a result, we have parallel action, and there's underlying tension because there's always that threat Wolverine's consciousness could return to the future and leave the world in an even darker place. Now, Days of Future Past is Simon Kinberg's second X-Men screenplay after X-Men The Last Stand. I thought that Kinberg had been around with the franchise since the first film, but nope, he got his start with X-Men The Last Stand, but he had pretty much been affiliated with the X-Men films after that, for the most part. Dude is kind of like the unsung hero of the X-Men franchise. I think I missed it, but apparently an older version of Sabretooth did appear in at the beginning of the film. According to Bryan Singer, he had a 2-hour discussion with James Cameron about how to make time travel concept feasible and workable within the movie. The concepts the two discussed included quantum physics, alternate universes, and string theory. But yeah, this is the first X-Men movie where Professor X wears something other than his trademark suit. Bryan Singer felt it wouldn't work for the Professor to have a suit in an apocalyptic future. Now, the release of the teaser trailer for this movie ignited such interest, Bryan Singer made the unprecedented move of recording an actual commentary track to it the following day, explaining the significance of certain scenes and offering more insight into what to expect from the movie. Which is pretty smart. Now, shooting went on under the working title Hello Kitty. This refers to Kitty Pryde, which is kind of clever. Hence the magic bullet. Now, Bryan Singer based Boulevard Trask on Adolf Hitler. As Hitler used the Jews as a scapegoat to bond the darker parts of Europe, he's doing the same thing with mutants. But he wasn't a 6-foot, perfect blonde Aryan. He was a short, funny-looking fellow. According to Bryan Singer, the mutants Rachel Summers, Psylocke, Deadpool, Nightcrawler, Gambit, and Jubilee were meant to appear in this movie, but were cut out for running time purposes. Now, Bryan Singer liked the painting in Trask's office so much and bought it after filming was complete. Also, this is also another one of the few X-Men films to not feature the late Stan Lee making his usual cameo appearance. I mean, Stan Lee was offered a cameo, but he opted out so he could attend Fan Expo Canada in Toronto. Now, Jason Fleming was originally set to reprise his role as Azazel when Matthew Vaughn was still set to direct. When Vaughn left, the storyline was dropped in favor of the time travel and crossover storyline, and Azazel's role cut from the script to accommodate characters from the first 3 X-Men movies. But Fleming still appears in the autopsy photograph of Azazel in the movie. I mean, I am rather peeved to know that Azazel, Angel, Emma Frost, and Banshee were all unceremoniously killed off before killed off screen. It really does grate my cheese, if you catch my drift. I mean, because I liked these portrayals, and the worst part about Emma Frost being unceremoniously killed off is that it's like we won't get to see Frost doesn't even get to play a big part in the Dark Phoenix sequel. And I guess I'll talk about that later. And I did like Zoe Kravitz as Angel, so I am very peeved by this. But yeah, Days of Future Past is the 5th X-Men movie to be based on a Chris Claremont X-Men comics. After all, X-Men 2 was adapted from God Loves, Man Kills. The Last Stand is based on Dark Phoenix Saga. The Wolverine is based on the Wolverine solo series. And, of course, Dark Phoenix. A romantic subplot between Storm and Wolverine in the future was filmed, but it was cut for runtime purposes. Now, John Mayer hid X symbols in sets he designed for the movie, which was pretty clever. Also, I love how the welcome sign is so outworn. As if he's outworn the welcome mat. Not this time. Now, Quicksilver made his comic book debut alongside his in X-Men #4, alongside Toad and Scarlet Witch, and this was actually 2014 was actually an interesting year for Quicksilver, as not only did he appear in Days of Future Past, but he also makes a cameo appearance in the mid-credits scene alongside Wanda in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This was actually made as a deal between Fox and Marvel. It's like Fox would allow Marvel Studios to use Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for a brief period, at least for Quicksilver. That way, we could have two very distinct versions of Quicksilver. However, because of this, Quicksilver was not allowed to. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were not allowed to be called mutants, and they were not allowed to be Magneto's children due to the fact that Fox also owns the rights to the word mutant. But I'll talk about those misgivings later when I do my commentary for Fantastic Four 2015. Bone Claws! And of course, that pretty much gets him interested in doing the heist. I must admit, I do love this heist scene. It actually is fun. Seeing Charles, Logan, and Beast in regular mundane clothing doing this heist. I honestly can't imagine Tom Hardy as the young Wolverine. It's weird, especially since he's 9 years younger than Hugh Jackman. Also, this is an interesting detail. Kind of dumb to be mentioning this, but the TV episode Beast uses to hack the Pentagon security cameras is the Sanford and Son episode "Tooth or Consequences," which is episode 6 of season 2. Which is ironic because I've never seen a single episode of Sanford and Son in my life. But I love mentioning details like these. And this actually is a perfect disguise because when you look at a man's uniform, you don't really notice if there's something different. Also, I love the detail that they have glass guns with glass bullets. But yeah, interestingly enough, in the comics, Pietro and Wanda are Romani Jewish. And I guess a lot of people are kind of peeved that both portrayals of Quicksilver leave out his Romani heritage. But it is what it is, I guess. Mind the glass. Why, that's totally not suspicious. That's like saying, that's almost like giving Ivan Vanko some obviously fake mashed potatoes with a message that says, enjoy the potatoes. Like, that's totally not a hint at all. Yes, I had to mention the potatoes thing from Iron Man 2. But yeah, I think he's using his speed powers to vibrate the glass to where it'll explode. Isn't science cool? Yeah, mind the glass indeed. Good thing. It's a good thing that big chunks didn't fall down. Because imagine those big chunks fell on Eric, and oh yeah, he'd be dead. He would be dead, and that would be the end of Magneto. And imagine Quicksilver's like, whoops, I accidentally killed Magneto. And then, yeah, that would be bad. Yeah, when talking to Beast, Logan says he hopes he isn't a parent, which is funny because he's sired several children throughout Marvel comic book history. He's the father of Dakin Akihiro, Dark Wolverine, and he's was cloned to create Laura Kinney, who he treats as a daughter. In the Ultimate Marvel Universe, he is the father of Jimmy Hudson, who was the second Wolverine. In the MC2 universe, he and Elektra give birth to Rena Logan, Wild Thing, and in the future X-Men storyline, he and Mystique sire Ray's Darkholme. Of course, he and Raven would have a kid, and Mystique would have a kid. Now, fun fact, a real website was created for the Trask Industries, which was available at the address www.trask-industries.com. The website revealed details about the Sentinel program, and it was even possible to make an application for a job within the company. Yeah, but yeah. I don't know karate, but I know crazy is actually a lyric in a James Brown song known as The Payback. This song featured prominently in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, a movie Matthew Vaughn produced, and in which Jason Fleming, who plays Azazel, appeared in. Yeah, and he's totally your father. Which is hilariously ironic because then a few seconds later, yeah, not good with violence, he says. Now, at the time of release, this movie tied a record previously held by The Dark Knight Rises for the most Academy Award nominated actors and actresses in a single comic book movie. While The Dark Knight Rises starred 7 nominees, with an additional nominee appearing via archive footage, 8 in total, this movie features 8. Halle Berry, Michael Fassbender, Hugh Jackman, Jennifer Lawrence, Michael Lerner, Sir Ian McKellen, Elliot Page, and Anna Paquin. But yeah, with the whole studio interference of this and his commitments to making Kingsman, also his commitments to Kingsman caused Matthew Vaughn to decline directing Days of Future Past. And oh yes, this is another scene that totally wins everyone over. And there's a time in a bottle. That I'd like to do. You know, it's really sad knowing that the singer of this song died so young. I think in a car crash, which is sad, you know, because his songs are very good. If it's sad when a singer dies young, but not from drugs, but due to other circumstances beyond the control, and because they would have had such an opportunity to had such an opportunity to release more songs, but he doesn't get that opportunity because of sad circumstances. Where's that fact? Now, Quicksilver's slow motion sequence was filmed with mostly practical visual effects, high-speed photography, and stunt rigs, with CGI used only for the objects in mid-air. And I love the chain reaction. That's a good scene. Now, Bryan Singer filmed Quicksilver's scenes in a special format of 3,600 frames per second. This means that Quicksilver moved 150 times faster than normal. The camera was used to record close-ups and movements of Evan Peters, as well as the guards he beat. Oh, whoops. Wrong fact. Because we want, because we're jonesing for croissants. Such hilarious foreshadowing. It's like Logan don't need to imagine. Now, costume designer Louisa Mingenbach deliberately gave Peter Maximoff 1981 era clothes to display his irreverence and his outsider nature. Well, awkward silence. Fun. Now, during filming, Bryan Singer had injured his vocal cords and could only speak without doing further damage with a falsetto. Thus, his orders on set led all actors and actresses to crack up at some point. I mean, I probably would too. Imagine Bryan being all like, I cannot being serious here. Please stop laughing at me. I injured my vocal cords. Please take me seriously. The three main X-Men in the principal cast, Halle Berry, Jennifer Lawrence, and Anna Paquin, are all Oscar winners. 6 of the principal male cast members, Hugh Jackman, Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy, Sir Ian McKellen, Sir Patrick Stewart, and Peter Dinklage, are all Golden Globe nominees. Jackman, Fassbender, McKellen, and Elliot Page are also Academy Award nominees. Oh. Yep, thank you for calming down. Otherwise, they'd all drown. I did not mean for that to rhyme. Yeah, it does anger me that Angel, Azazel, Riptide, and Emma were going to return, but that they were killed off. Not exactly. And yeah, that's a Vietnamese cover of Stop in the Name of Love. Interestingly, Sir Patrick Stewart, James McAvoy, Sir Ian McKellen, and Michael Fassbender have all played the title role in movie adaptations of Macbeth. But yeah, the reason Peter has the American sounding name is to help distinguish himself from the version of the character from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, not only because of different I can actually tell both versions apart thanks to the different actors and the different different actors and different continuities and such. According to Simon Kinberg, this movie was influenced by time travel movies such as The Time Machine from 1960, The Terminator, Back to the Future, Looper, and Men in Black 3. But yeah, originally, if Matthew Vaughn had directed, Juggernaut would have been the one to break Magneto out of prison. But yeah, Bryan Singer decided to use Quicksilver instead, as Juggernaut had already been used as an antagonist in X-Men 3: The Last Stand. And it's funny because later on, Juggernaut is used and is broken out of prison. Cue malicious compliance. I mean, yeah, she does take off her clothes and shows him more. Or are you just mad that you can't see my nipples? You know, some perverts would totally be turned on by what she's doing with her foot. They'd be like, choke me next, mommy! And he's out like a lump. And she's just multitasking, reading it while putting him down. But yeah, this movie, according to producer Simon Kinberg, unites all of the future mutants. It's this dysfunctional family and these desperate people who are outcasts in their own lives, and they come together, and that's not as emotionally satisfying as an outcast on their own. Also, it's crazy knowing, I just realized this. Yeah, Peter is never called Quicksilver throughout the film. But yeah, the story's main theme is hope, according to Simon Kinberg. This is what he also has to say. It confronts the notions of second chances. It's about characters that are lost, trying to find themselves. In the other films, the characters had come into their own and knew who they were. In this one, they're all lost and they're trying to keep it together. Now, the filmmakers have officially stated that all the known mutants who are missing in action during the dystopian 2023 scenes have died in the interim off screen. Others were executed by humans and others were killed during the war by the Sentinels. This means that Mystique, Beast, Angel, Quicksilver, and Nightcrawler are long dead before the action takes place. And when I say Angel, I of course mean Warren Worthington III. The death of Beast is referenced in the film itself. Mystique's death was mentioned by Wolverine in a deleted scene. The only notable exception is Rogue, who is still alive in 2023 but has been captured and imprisoned inside the Xavier Mansion. She appears in the extended cut, which I'm not doing a commentary for right now. According to the backstory, it is actually Rogue's unique DNA that made the future Sentinels even more powerful than the prototypes made by Trask. However, Paquin wasn't upset over her scenes as Rogue being cut, explaining, "I got to hang out with my friends for 5 days in Montreal and see people I've known for 2 decades and go play. Did it end up in the movie? No. Well, it was fun anyway." Now, Simon Kinberg's original script reportedly followed the original storyline more closely, with the character of Rachel Grey sending Wolverine back, but eventually he replaced her with Kitty and upgraded her phasing and intangibility to being able to phase things through time. Now, according to Kinberg, Wolverine was not the first choice for the mutant going back in time. The filmmakers initially considered sending Beast, Xavier, or Magneto to the past, but the client decided against it since it would have required the younger actors to impersonate their older counterparts, which was deemed totally tonally inconsistent with the overall mood of the movie. Wolverine was chosen because of his extended lifespan and slow aging, which allowed Hugh Jackman to play both versions of the character, and I think the movie does benefit from this. But yeah, Days of Future Past is one of the only movies with a little person portraying a character in which the size of the character is never brought up, nor made into an ironic joke, and I actually like this. Now, as I mentioned before in my commentary companions episode to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because of a contract dispute over director Mark Webb, Sony agreed to place a mid-credits teaser for this movie in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The scene, which was not included in the video release of that movie, is unusual for a mid-credits teaser in that it is actual footage from the movie it is promoting. The scene in Vietnam with Stryker and Mystique. The documents Mystique discovers in Trask's office mention the names of crew members Gia Fertiber and E. Kephart, which is a reference to Genevieve Fertiber, who was the movie's set decorator, and Ilse Kephart, who was the art department clerk. Dun dun dun. And oh, Mystique looks like she's about to shit bricks. Yeah, I'm totally not a mutant. Yeah. Yeah, still trying to not be a mutant. Don't touch me! And she's like, well, the jig's up. At least I tried. Also, I do love this transformation sequence of Mystique reverting back to her blue self. It is a cool sequence. It almost rivals her first appearance in the first X-Men film. Yep, playing peekaboo with a gun. Maybe don't play peekaboo with a gun. Now, John Ottman is the first composer to score more than one movie in the X-Men film franchise, and the first editor to edit more than one, having already done both on X-Men 2. Many summaries of the movie, particularly those written prior to its release, claim that the plot involved the X-Men going back in time and teaming up with their former selves. No such thing happens in this movie. Only Wolverine travels back in time and does so retaining in his 1973 body. Oh, speaking of Stryker, speak of the devil, and it's enough to interrupt his peaceful thoughts. Uh-oh. Yeah, things escalate. Yeah. Even if he succeeded in killing Mystique, it would probably result in Mystique's corpse being captured and used, and the DNA being studied and extracted just to pretty much create the Sentinels. So it would happen anyway, even if he did succeed in killing Mystique. I don't know what he hoped to accomplish. Ooh, I mean, could be worse. It is worse. But imagine if she got shot in the ass instead. Right up Main Street. And so we get Logan in the 1970s, or should I say Jimmy, because I have to remember his real name is James Logan Howlett. It's like, run, little man, run! Plot similarities to X2 begin with an assassination attempt on an unnamed president. The plot in this one revolved around preventing an assassination, first of Boulevard Trask and subsequently of Richard Nixon. In the earlier movie, the would-be assassin was Nightcrawler. In this movie, it's Mystique. Both blue. Ain't that an interesting coincidence? Ooh. And she scratched up bad. Ooh, yeah, she tried to walk it off. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Well, at least he got the bullet out. Although this movie establishes the reset timeline within the X-Men franchise, many fans pointed out that the previous prequels, X-Men Origins Wolverine and X-Men First Class, as well as the backstory of Days of Future Past, already have many inconsistencies with the first three X-Men films, and even each other. The makers of these prequels have stated that they allowed for some discrepancies for the purpose of storytelling, thereby creating some sort of an alternate history or soft reboot of the series. However, with the advent of multiverse movies in the 2020s, such as Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, a different in-universe theory is possible. The prequel movies may already take place in parallel universes that are slightly different from the one established in X-Men 1 through 3. When Wolverine is taken back to 1973, he may not only travel back in time but also into another universe, namely the one depicted in X-Men First Class. This specific time travel mechanism would explain the changes in continuity, and is similar to The Flash from 2023, where Barry Allen also goes back into his past to make a change, but then finds out that he has ended up in a parallel universe with a very different history. Now, if you know, there are actually three Summers brothers in the comics. Scott Summers, Cyclops, Alex Summers, Havoc, and Gabriel Summers, the brother who went rogue, known as Vulcan. Isn't that legally interesting? Don't tase me, bro! Now, young Charles's alcoholism is presumably a reference to his mother, Sharon Xavier, becoming a drunk not long after the death of her first husband in the comics. Before Evan Peters was cast as Quicksilver, Jamie Campbell Bower and Nico Tortorello auditioned for the role of Quicksilver. But also, interestingly enough, Days of Future Past is the third movie in which Hugh Jackman plays a time traveler, after Kate and Leopold and The Fountain. The Fountain released in 2006. Days of Future Past, however, is the first movie where he travels to the past, while the other movies had him travel to the future. And he's thinking, well, this is embarrassing. I better run while I still have my dignity intact. Now, John Byrne is on record stating he was not approached for a cameo. He says he would have declined, stating he disliked the movies and he'd feel like he was in the Carrie prom scene. All of the scenes that are supposed to take place in Paris were shot in Old Montreal. The building seen from almost all angles is actually City Hall, and the fountain is located in the small place of Vauquelin just beside it. Ironically, for something that is supposed to be in France, seen in the background is a column erected to Lord Nelson in 1809. Even Mark Twain, when visiting Montreal in 1881, noticed it and declared with his habitual humor, "I have observed here with emotion, in your city, the monument which makes forever memorable the exact place where Horatio Nelson did not stand when he fell." And here we have Richard M. Nixon. Now, Richard M. Nixon is played by Canadian character actor Mark Camacho, who's no stranger to Marvel, as he played Jigsaw's henchman Pitsy in Punisher Warzone. I almost didn't recognize him because Camacho looks dead on, really does look like Richard M. Nixon here. Very commendable. It's interesting because, coincidentally, Dominic West, who plays Jigsaw, as I mentioned before, has collaborated with Sir Patrick Stewart in A Christmas Carol. I think it's pretty funny knowing that West and Camacho have both collaborated with Patrick Stewart, even though Camacho has absolutely no scenes with Sir Patrick Stewart. But yeah, he kind of does look like Richard Nixon. He really is admirable. And he actually does a good job imitating Nixon's mannerisms. Also, fun fact, James McAvoy and Peter Dinklage appeared in the 2006 movie Penelope. And that totally won't come back to bite you in the ass. Now, Sean Ashmore and Adam Canto previously worked together on the hit Fox series The Following, along with Kevin Bacon, who played Sebastian Shaw in X-Men First Class. But thanks to Days of Future Past, the X-Men franchise broke $3 billion at the box office. Well, the global box office. And Mark Millar served as a creative consultant for the film. Also, this franchise was the only major competitor to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and its flagship franchise, The Avengers. This film has served now. Days of Future Past has served plot parallels with the Avengers sequels. Now, Quicksilver appears in Age of Ultron, and Peter Dinklage also appears in Avengers: Infinity War. And like Avengers: Endgame, it involves time travel from the year 2023 in order to prevent a mass extinction of people. Damn, he was young. Now, as I said before, Rachel Summers was originally going to be the one to send Wolverine back in time and have a complicated relationship with Storm, but her role was cut and given to Kitty Pryde because Simon Kinberg felt the movie already had enough drama and characters. While promoting this film, this is going to sound messed up and gross, Sir Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender agreed that they would have liked for there to have been a scene at some point in the series where Magneto and Mystique were making love while Mystique was shapeshifted into Professor X's form. I'm sure some sick fuck on DeviantArt or would probably make fucked up fan art of that, or maybe a fucked up a scenario like that on one of their fan fiction sites. Don't give those perverts any ideas. Also, yes, apparently, John F. Kennedy was established as a mutant in the X-Men film universe, which is interesting to imagine. As for his powers, while the exact nature of his mutation was never deeply explored on screen, it is generally believed he possessed a form of telepathic persuasion, which aided in his political charisma and ability to sway the public. Simon Kinberg has specifically described his power as a telepathic form of persuasiveness. Now, the X-Men franchise expanded this lore to his brother, Robert F. Kennedy, who was also a mutant with a much stronger form of telepathy that allowed him to absorb memories and feel the emotions of citizens. And I bet you his son, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., probably isn't a mutant, or maybe his mutant power is that he's a dumbass, kind of like in real life. And yes, I am very salty about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Saying all those negative things about people on the autism spectrum. Yeah, fuck you, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Also, interestingly, James McAvoy and Peter Dinklage have starred in films in the Chronicles of Narnia series. I totally forgot Dinklage played a character in Prince Caspian. Now, the film depicts the extinction of the X-Men and mutants by the year 2023. Ironically, the X-Men franchise would meet its end by 2020 due to the Fox-Disney merger of 2019, and Disney would move on to reboot and reintroduce the X-Men in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This could also be a metaphor for drug addiction, and drug dependency. And that's when he decides, I don't need it. Because he's going out on a limb here. Where's that fact? I know I saw it somewhere. Absolutely not. Ha. Jinx. Now, Hugh Jackman admitted that working with the largely younger cast on this film made him feel his age. He recalled an exchange with Nicholas Hoult. The first day we shot in the X mansion, Nick said, "I'm sorry, but this is just so cool because I saw you walking down these halls when I was 10 years old." And I said, "I know that's meant as a compliment, but it still stings a little, mate." I mean, at least he has a sense of humor about it. And he's a mutant. Well, he will be. Well, just remember, humans are easily united by hate. Which is funny because that same question is asked about Stryker. James McAvoy recalled working with Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen on the film, and he says, "I had just finished doing Macbeth on the West End in London, and I go up in the trailer, and Ian's like, 'You've just come off the stage, James. You've just done Macbeth, haven't you?' And he's like, 'Come on, let's all do a bit.' Because Patrick had done it as well. I couldn't remember a single line, and these two are like banging back and forward their favorite bits from Macbeth. I was like, wow, it's just a different kind of actor, a different kind of machine." And people fall for this disguise. Now, Anna Paquin's scenes had to be filmed first due to her commitments to True Blood. Her subplot was ultimately removed from the theatrical film, but was restored in the Rogue cut. Also, this film contains 1,400 visual effects shots. Now, because PG-13 films only allow you to use fuck only once, in the unrated Rogue cut, the word fuck is spoken by Richard Nixon in response to seeing the mutants on the news. Nixon was notoriously profane behind closed doors, which the American public was shocked to learn in the transcripts of his White House tapes. The transcripts were first published in 1974, a year after this film takes place. And of course, James McAvoy was thrilled to get to film a scene with Patrick Stewart, one of his idols. Now, due to the high intensity of his training and diet, Hugh Jackman was quite happy to hang up his adamantium claws. However, when he read the script for this film and knew of Matthew Vaughn's involvement, he readily opted to return to the role of Wolverine. Now, Michael Fassbender deliberately altered his voice to make it more aligned with that of Ian McKellen's. And casting Evan Peters proved very difficult, as his schedule for American Horror Story was too tightly packed. Bryan Singer bumped into that show's producer, Ryan Murphy, by chance, who was more than happy to help make Peters available for the movie. Also, you're going to find this funny. In most of the shots of Wolverine lying on a table while Kitty Pryde sends him back in time, that's not Hugh Jackman. It's actually a highly detailed mannequin, freeing up Jackman's time and energy. Now, X-Men Days of Future Past is the fourth superhero movie in which a character is implicated in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy after Captain America from 1990, Watchmen, the movie, and Captain America the Winter Soldier. Now, Nicholas Hoult appears in this film with Sir Ian McKellen. Holt played Middle-earth creator J.R.R. Tolkien in the 2019 Tolkien movie. Holt also shares his role of Dr. McCoy with Kelsey Grammer, who appeared on Star Trek The Next Generation. Tolkien created the character Eomer, who was played on the film by Carl Urban, who also plays Dr. McCoy in the 2009 Star Trek film directed by J.J. Abrams. Also, this is Hugh Jackman's 10th film to gross over $100 million domestically, or 11th if you count his cameo in X-Men First Class. Yeah, after all, it took me a long time to gain back my memories. Also, I really do like that they use footage not only from the Wolverine, but also the first two X-Men films and The Last Stand, and it really does work in the film. Although she received a contractually obligated credit, producer Laura Schuler Donner had nothing to do with this film. Also, yeah, this is also one of my favorite scenes from the film. And it's beautifully shot. Oh, this is cool. Sir Idris Elba, Michael Kenneth Williams, and Adewale Akinwumi Agbaje were suggested by fans to play Bishop. Pardon the motorcycle and all the other cars. Like I said, I'm recording this in my bedroom. It's Indy. Now, this scene where the younger Charles Xavier meets up with his older version was actually Patrick Stewart's last day on set and James McAvoy's first day on set, which I think is actually really cool. And yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes that connects the whole film together. Yeah, in the scene where Trask and Nixon discuss the implementation of the Sentinel program, an aide is seen switching off a tape recorder. This is a sly reference to the infamous 18.5-minute gap on Richard Nixon's Oval Office tapes, long thought to have been deliberately erased by Nixon or his aides to cover up politically damaging information. Former Nixon advisor H.R. Haldeman has said the erased conversation contained references to Nixon's involvement in the John F. Kennedy assassination, another subtle joke in the movie, as Kennedy is revealed to have been a mutant. Definitely one of the best scenes in the film. Now, the addition of Evan Peters as Quicksilver to the cast sparked wide discussion over the direction of the character, who was also slated to appear in Avengers Age of Ultron. Quicksilver had been discussed previously as a potential character in both X-Men The Last Stand and The Avengers, specifically the first film, but legal complexities over the license to the character resulted in his omission from both movies. However, in May of 2013, Marvel and Fox Studios announced a resolution to the previous legal issues, and that Quicksilver would appear in this movie as well as an Avengers sequel, though under certain parameters. No reference to Quicksilver's membership in the Avengers can be made in an X-Men movie, and no allusion to his relations to the X-Men or Magneto, the character's father, can be made in an Avengers movie. The rights agreement between Fox and Marvel even goes so far as to stipulate the character cannot be referred to as a mutant in any Marvel movie. Additionally, the day after the announcement of Peter's casting, Marvel and Fox entered into a legal standoff over provisions of the rights agreement for the characters, including the issue of whether Peters would be allowed to portray Quicksilver in any other movie outside the X-Men film franchise, possibly necessitating a second actor to play Quicksilver in any Marvel movie, resulting in two different versions of the same character appearing in two competing film franchises. Ultimately, Fox and Marvel decided to cast different actors in the part of the X-Men and Avengers movies, with Aaron Taylor Johnson taking on the role in the latter sequel, thus preventing any connection between the two franchises and keeping the X-Men confined to a separate universe from those of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Ironically, after Disney's acquisition of the 20th Century Fox in 2019, Peters reprised his role in a way in the MCU miniseries WandaVision, only for it to turn out that he's Ralph Bohner. Yep, you know what they say. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. You know, it's kind of funny. Michael Fassbender and Evan Peters are only 10 years apart in age. But yeah, in the Days of Future Past comic, Mystique tries to assassinate Senator Robert Kelly, which leads to the genesis of the Sentinel program. In this movie, Mystique remains the assassin, but as Kelly had appeared in X-Men, the first film, her target is now Boulevard Trask, the actual creator of the Sentinel program. Yeah. Now, a sequence where Mystique returns to the X-Mansion following Xavier contacting her telepathically in the Paris airport was filmed, but cut. In this sequence, Wolverine would explain the origin of the Sentinels in the future war, and Mystique would have a romantic encounter with Beast, carrying over on a subplot from X-Men First Class. These scenes were cut for runtime purposes, but have been partially restored in the extended edition. I've been thinking of renting the extended cut, and I think I will one day. Originally, Raven was to choose to go with Charles, would go with Charles instead of Eric, and would appear in the altered future teaching a biology class with an older Hank. Meanwhile, Logan would be retrieved from the Potomac River by Stryker, thus bringing around the Weapon X story arc. The filmmakers felt this was too predictable and a sad ending, so it was changed to Raven simply escaping and making her own agenda under Stryker's form to make the ending more unexpected. Now, producer Simon Kinberg said that in the unwritten backstory, Boulevard Trask was part of the group responsible for attempting to assassinate the mutant President John F. Kennedy. Kinberg also said that Trask had military and supporters in the U.S. government, and that during the Vietnam War, any soldier with a higher than anticipated kill record would be subjected to tests by Trask Industries to determine whether he was a mutant. Those found to be a mutant were put into quarantine. Okay, now I can finally mention this. I've been waiting to mention it. The Star Trek episode playing on Hank's television is The Naked Time, the fourth episode of the first season, which was intentionally chosen because of the time travel aspect. I think that's pretty funny. Also, here's a crazy coincidence. Interestingly enough, there have been several X-Men Star Trek crossover comics published by Marvel back in the 90s, specifically 1996. But yeah, in the X-Men Star Trek crossover, this crossover comic saw Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, and Dr. Bones McCoy teaming up with Cyclops, Jean, Beast, Wolverine, Storm, Gambit, and Bishop. There would also be a follow-up comic book sequel where the X-Men would meet Captain Jean-Luc Picard's Enterprise in the Next Generation / X-Men #1. There was even a 1998 crossover novel known as Planet X. Star Trek X-Men was published by Paramount Comics, an imprint by Marvel that focused on making comic books based on properties that were owned by Paramount Pictures, including a lot of Star Trek comics, which is pretty funny. And this was long before Marvel made a deal with Paramount to have Paramount distribute the first several films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But could you imagine an alternate timeline where Paramount ended up buying Marvel outright after the event instead of Disney? What's even cooler is that several actors from this series have also appeared in a Star Trek television series or film. As you know, Sir Patrick Stewart is best known not only for playing Professor Xavier, but also for playing Captain Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation. Famke Janssen, who played Jean Grey, and Kelsey Grammer, who plays Beast, both made guest appearances on Star Trek The Next Generation, as did Ray Wise, who played Toad and Secretary of State in X-Men First Class. Rebecca Romijn, who also plays Mystique, has appeared on Star Trek Discovery, as well as Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And, of course, we all know that Bryan Singer made a cameo appearance in Star Trek Nemesis. But yeah, I never realized how many connections Star Trek had to Marvel. It's pretty cool knowing this. It's interesting how 1973 is 6 years prior to Wolverine gaining adamantium claws and losing his memory in the original timeline, just prior to the infamous 3 Mile Island incident. You know, actually, it is almost canonically mentioned that Wanda actually almost does exist in the X-Men film universe. She mentioned having a little sister. Quicksilver has a little sister. Now, Bryan Singer wanted Kurt Wagner, aka Nightcrawler, to be in the movie, but he thought there were already too many characters as it was. To compensate for this, Nightcrawler does appear in X-Men Apocalypse. Now, I also didn't know this, but apparently Halle Berry was pregnant on set. Yeah, I didn't know that Halle Berry was pregnant when doing Days of Future Past, and And yeah, never knew this, but it explains why her role is so reduced. Also, yeah, it turns out in the movie, Storm and Logan were in a relationship. This is funny. The bullet wounds that appear on Wolverine's chest on his arrival to the 1970s is in the form of the Big Dipper. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Also, I think it's funny. I mean, Wolverine's so used to having adamantium in his skeleton that it's so weird not having the metal detector being set off. Anyway, like I was saying, so yeah, the bullet wounds that appear on Wolverine's chest on his arrival to the 1970s is in the form of the Big Dipper. This is an homage to Fist of the North Star, whose protagonist, Kenshiro, has the same scar pattern on his chest. It's funny how Richard Nixon is no longer the most corrupt president ever. I'm pregnant. Yeah, it's actually the Sentinels really do look cool here, and I almost thought for a moment that they were portrayed with puppetry, but nope, it was actually straight up CG. But some stand-ins were used. Oh yeah, that guy's totally Mystique. But yeah, Bishop is the first mutant Kitty Pryde sends through time. This is an homage to Bishop being a frequent time traveler in the X-Men comics. Oh wow. Oh, want some Tain Ooh? But yeah, a life-size model of a 1973 Sentinel robot was constructed for filming. But yeah, production designer John Meyer described the future Sentinels as having evolved from machines into biomechanical weapons. They are almost made up of magnetic plates slapped over one another, imagining that the plates could contract or grow. So the Sentinel can be skinny to get through a small space, or the plates can open up to become a bigger shape. They have become virtually unstoppable, the ultimate version that can actually, in principle, stop the X-Men. Also, that little girl with red hair looking up is indeed a young Jean Grey. And he sounds so smug when saying it. Also, it is kind of it's pretty cool. See, this whole scene rules with the whole baseball field and the Sentinels coming to life. Okay, so I may as well mention it. When Matthew Vaughn was going to direct, he was going to make this a direct sequel to First Class, having it set in the 1970s, as I mentioned earlier. Early ideas included an opening with the Kennedy assassination being caused by Magneto, and mutant encounters set during the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War. When Bryan Singer took over, he integrated these concepts into a viral marketing campaign to set up the action of the movie. In this alternate history, Magneto was arrested and imprisoned for the assassination of Kennedy, but maintains his innocence. The bent bullet theory, a reference to the real-life magic bullet theory criticized by conspiracy theorists, holds that the Warren Commission determined that Magneto manipulated Lee Harvey Oswald's bullets to kill the president in retribution for the murder of the mutants Azazel and Tempest. The CIA conspiracy theorists, based on Magneto's testimony, insist, however, that Magneto had tried to prevent the murder of Kennedy and that the true shooter was not Oswald, but Mystique in disguise, who, with the help of Emma Frost, framed Magneto and manipulated Jack Ruby into later murdering Oswald. The theory also posits that Mystique offered to double as Kennedy in an attempt to grab power, all of which backfired horribly, leading to anti-mutant hostilities. Well, I love that flowing back cape on Storm. It's like, work it, Queen. Now, Bryan Singer and Peter Dinklage describe Bolivar Trask as a peace lover. He feels that humanity will go on fighting each other unless they can find a common element to unite against. He sees the advent of the mutants as a way to unite people. He sees what he's doing as a good thing. His ambition is definitely blind. He's strove all his life for a certain respect and attention. Yeah. Once again, Bishop is totally the coolest thing about this film. It is such a shame this is his only appearance. I don't understand why he couldn't appear in Logan. I do wonder what Stan Lee's cameo appearance would have been like. In the Paris subway, a sign can be seen for Victor Hugo Avenue, which is funny since Hugh Jackman appeared in Les Miserables playing Jean Valjean, based on Victor Hugo's novel of the same name. Nice. That is... Ooh. Now, when Magneto is retrieving his helmet, you can see Havoc's damaged X-Men uniform, one of Angel Salvador's wings, and the coin Magneto used to kill Sebastian Shaw from X-Men First Class. Well, Magneto isn't. Yeah, you were saying, Storm? Ooh, that looks fatal. Ooh, damn. Of course, give these guys credit. They pretty much make sure that they don't go out without a fight. Ouch. It's like go out fighting. But yeah, Magneto using Sentinels to attack the White House and attempt to assassinate the president before being stopped by Xavier's telepathy is taken from Ultimate Marvel X-Men Comics, which I actually remember because I read that when I was in high school. That's so cool. Yeah, well, that's comforting to know. It's like, possibly. Rawr. Yes, master. For X-Men First Class, James McAvoy shaved his head in preparation for the role of Charles Xavier before learning that the producers wished the younger Xavier to have hair. Ironically, this movie features the hairiest depiction of the character yet, sporting a full beard and long locks. Which is pretty funny. This film features multiple parallels with X-Men comic Age of Apocalypse, wherein mutant villain Apocalypse engages in a takeover of Earth. The plot involves traveling to the past to rewrite a bleak dystopian future. Magneto is allied with the X-Men, Blink and Bishop appear as members of the future X-Men, and the changing of history results in Apocalypse's existence. Incidentally, the very plot of the comic X-Men Age of Apocalypse was subsequently adapted into the next film, X-Men Apocalypse. Ouch! Rub salt in the wound, why don't you? Also, yeah, Warpath's death is also the same way Wolverine goes out in the Days of Future Past comic book. But yeah, Magneto embedding metal bars into Wolverine to prevent him from moving is also, and Wolverine's appearance with metal sticking out of his body is an homage to an event in the comics where Magneto ripped the adamantium out of Wolverine's body. Yep, busted. It is clearly a woman, asshole. Going by the rules of time travel established in the film, Logan is the only one who can do anything to change the past. Going by this, when Magneto impales Logan with rebar and launches him into the Potomac, Kitty could have broken the connection with him at any point after that, and the changes to the future would have been the same. Now, Blink, Warpath, Iceman, Sunspot, and Colossus all die twice in the movie. Colossus and Iceman are the only ones from the original movies who die twice. Oh, man. Colossus's death here is so brutal. Shame. Sorry, I'm so absorbed by this. Some fans claim that Days of Future Past is a rarity in comparison to the majority of the Marvel films in existence, since it doesn't end with a huge action scene. They say that instead it is a relatively smaller and far more dramatic action piece when the Sentinels attack the monastery in the future and Eric attacks the White House in the past. This is not true, considering most Marvel movies don't consist of fighting time in the same universe. Endgame and Infinity War, while outside of the X-Men universe, deal with timelines differently than this movie, while also being in the same category. It is very much the same as the MCU movies and the Spider-Verse films. Peacemaker Season 1 and 2 also touch on the multiverse and timelines. Ah, damn, poor Blink. Also, I really do... Ian McKellen's performance here is really great. I mean, I like that Ian McKellen gets to play a much more older and more regretful Magneto, regretful of his past actions after everything that happened. And it's like all those years wasted that really, it really drew me into his performance. And this would also be the last time we would see Sir Ian McKellen as Magneto here. At least that's what yeah, it would. Although, I have to check. But yes, but of course, this would be his last appearance before finally appearing in Avengers Doomsday, which I am excited for. Actually, I am more pumped than ever. Yeah. And of course, what Beast did here is actually a very smart decision. Yeah, this is actually very smart because it fools the Sentinel. It's kind of like I would compare it to Dutch disguising him, pretty much covering himself in mud to avert the Predator's heat signature. It's like, ha, bitch, you thought. Oof, that's gotta hurt. Now, in this movie, JFK is heavily implied to be a mutant. In the year previous to Days of Future Past, James Marsden, who's best known for playing Cyclops, portrayed John F. Kennedy, and Liev Schreiber, who played Sabretooth, portrayed Lyndon B. Johnson in The Butler. But yeah, this movie marks the second time that former U.S. President Richard Nixon has been depicted in a comic book movie adaptation. The first was Watchmen, which was directed by Zack Snyder. Yeah. Oh no, he's melting, melting. Oh, what a world, what a world. Oh boy. Who knows if they're about to be toast? Oh, surprise, bitch! Too late, asshole. But yeah, this is also the only time in which, in the X-Men franchise, where Xavier uses another mutant's powers by controlling them. But actually, it is quite a smart decision, making Magneto pretty much get him out of the debris. It's like, but yeah, that's gotta hurt. It's like, yep, goodbye indeed. Yep. Yep, see you in 10 years. Bye! Yep, everyone except for Wolverine. Also, yes, this ending, which proves that Logan succeeded, really does tie this whole film together and make it so great. Also, I like that when he wakes up in the future, it's the same song he's listening to that he was listening to when he woke up in 1973 in Golden Oldies. I like that virtual radio. And wouldn't you know it, he's back in school. Also, this is actually a very well made scene. Yep, there's Rogue wearing her signature colors. Yep, there's Kitty and Colossus. Colossus totally deserved to speak more, especially with a Russian accent. And pretty soon that's the last we'll see of Daniel Cutmore. Kelsey Grammer wanted to return as the Elder Beast in a substantial role, but due to scheduling conflicts with Transformers Age of Extinction, he was unable. His cameo was added during reshoots to keep it secret, which is great, you know? And of course, we'd see Kelsey Grammer as Beast again in the mid-credits scene to the Marvels. I wonder. I must look. Will Kelsey Grammer? But yeah, Kelsey Grammer will return as Beast in Avengers Doomsday. And of course, this would be the last we would see of Famke Janssen. of course, subject to change on whether she will appear in Avengers Doomsday. Now, the cameos of Cyclops and Jean Grey, played again by James Marsden and Famke Janssen, were so tightly guarded that the actors, as well as director Bryan Singer, outright lied about their appearance in the movie to keep their return a surprise. As you all know, they were killed in The Last Stand. But it actually is nice to see that Logan is so happy to see Cyclops again, which would make sense. I mean, I can imagine he would miss a Cyclops. Yeah, maybe you should read his mind again, Jean. Yep, and that's the last we see of Famke Janssen, subject to change at any moment. For all I know, she might have lied about not appearing in Avengers Doomsday. We don't really know. Which sounds in character. And that's when Charles lights up. He finally remembers. Oh, so nice. Which only makes me even more sad once I do my commentary for Logan. Indeed. Drowning. Now, originally, Logan was supposed to straight up be captured by explicitly just Stryker to indicate to Weapon X. But they felt that was a bit too depressing. Yeah, that's Michael Ironside. Bet you didn't know that. Yep, and Trask gets his comeuppance, and which is so satisfying. It's like, suck it, Trask, bitch. He's alive. Alive! Also, I love that smirk on actor Josh Hellman's face. Dun dun dun. But yeah, that was X-Men Days of Future Past. Of course, if you probably know about the post-credits scene that features Apocalypse, and well, I'll probably talk about Apocalypse later when I do my Commentary Companions episode for X-Men Apocalypse, which is actually an interesting mess. But anyway, what are my thoughts on X-Men Days of Future Past? Well, I did rewatch it just so I could, because it had been a long time, and I kind of wanted to refresh myself on it. But yeah, 10 years later, the film still holds up, even if, some of it feels contradictory thanks to Logan. But the good thing about X-Men Days of Future Past is that it was a great opportunity to reset everything and reconcile with the film's flaws. And I think X-Men Days of Future Past certainly helped with making Deadpool possible. And it's great performances from the prequel actors, and it's great performances from Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen, who give great performances as the older Professor X and Magneto. And it still holds up after all this time, and it's a great film. I mean, it's something I'm so glad. I'm always happy. I don't usually get to watch this film, but if it ever does air on TV again on syndication, it's something I'd be glad to watch on FX or something like that. But yeah, that was my commentary on X-Men Days of Future Past. Of course, the next Commentary Companions episodes, I'm going to be talking about schlock. I'm going to be talking about bad stuff. But one of them will be a podcast episode in which I talk about the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special and its history. As I give my personal thoughts, I feel like it's a perfect time to mention the Star Wars Holiday Special as Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and Grogu finally gets released in theaters. That's why I want to capitalize on that. And of course, I'll be talking about, and of course, everyone knows that the Star Wars Holiday Special is so bad it's good. Fantastic Four 2015 is not so bad it's good, it's just bad. And you will see why when I do a commentary companions on that episode. But until then, I'm Tony the Happy Nerd. This has been Commentary Companions. Don't have a good day. Have a great day.